Greetings everyone and welcome back to Banners on the Wall. Anthony Russell here, and well, after so much writing, it's the first game of pre-season for me. But the regular season hasn't started yet in full force. That starts for me next week. But with that having been said and having done a massive National Division preview, I figured let's take it to the audio for the first game of the season here on the website. Our Banners on the Road series is back, where I give you an in-depth look at the game that I attended, and we go back to last Saturday, the 31st of August 2024, the start of our 24-25 season National Division pre-season action between the Swindon Wildcats and the Telford Tigers. Final score from the Link Centre: Swindon Wildcats 4, Telford Tigers 1. The goals for the Swindon Wildcats scored by Dylan Lipsey, 2 goals for new Canadian import Jake Bricknell, and an empty net goal from Sam Godfrey. The lone Telford Tigers goal coming from Scott McKenzie. I'm starting to grow fond of the Link Centre. For a long time it wasn't a particularly favourite rink of mine. The lighting always seemed a bit too bright, but now that I've been there more often, I'm starting to like the place a little bit more and more every time. Maybe it's because I kind of know where everything is, certainly post the refurb after the flooding, and maybe I'm just more comfortable in it than before. Either way, it was great to be back in a nice rink again after so long away. I hadn't stepped foot in a rink since the final of the playoffs back in Coventry, and won't lie, I was itching to get back to it. Swindon is as good a place as any to start, and when my initial plan to go to Slough had fallen through because my sister had decided that she wanted to do my godson's christening on the Sunday the 1st, Wildcats it was to start things off. I've watched Telford and Swindon quite a few times at the Link Centre now, and I was a little bit apprehensive, if only for the sense that these two sides generally will have a scoreless period, maybe even two, somewhere along the line, and well, we did get a bit of that. Either way, it was nice to be back in the rink. Not a full Link Centre for this particular one, but it's pre-season. People were off doing bits and pieces. Congratulations to Ben Callahan and his new wife Meg, for example, on that bit. But it was a pretty decent crowd for a pre-season fixture. A few Telford fans had travelled down, and after a few pleasantries and saying hellos, before we knew it, we were back exactly where we were a few months ago. Hockey was being played, smiles on everybody's faces, everything was rocking and rolling. A few notable absentees on both sides. Sam Bullis, having just returned that day from his honeymoon, was left out of the lineup for obvious reasons. Jay Warren, having signed for Swindon Wildcats NIHL 1 side, guested into the lineup on the evening for them. No Zach Yokoyama, no Dan Rose for the Telford Tigers, but young star Taylor Stanton making a first appearance in senior hockey for him, albeit not a competitive appearance yet. And a reminder, if you've not checked out the video from BBC Shropshire about that young man, I recommend you do so. The first period did exactly what you'd expect of a pre-season game. A few misplaced passes here and there, a few guys not quite sure where everybody was, and it was good. Good pace, good feel to it for both sides. Pre-season is reps over results. That's the thing everybody seems to forget. Yes, you want your team to come racing out of the traps and destroy all the opposition left, right and centre, but that's not what pre-season's for, if we're honest. Pre-season is a time to find out where the nuts and bolts need to be tightened, and sometimes you realise you have more to do than you thought you did. Swindon look exactly the same as they always do. They're looking for that quick transition game, and a lot of eyes were on their new imports, particularly Wells and Bricknell. Wells at the back was expected to be this sort of run-and-gun offensive defenseman, having looked at his stats, but actually he wasn't going for that game in the immediacy. Your first game in a new country, your first game out of the country, in fact, Wells alongside Ed Bradley seemed to decide to just do the job, feel the whole thing out, see how it's going to look. Not unreasonable for the first 20 minutes of your career in a new country. Bricknell decided he wanted to hit everything that moved. This also somewhat speaks to his game and what we've been able to glean of him from other places. But it feels like if people wanted something that was between Gael Labuele and Colby Tower for Swindon, they've got a guy who hits like Gael Labuele and positions himself like Colby Tower. They have found their hybrid that they needed. Bricknell is going to be a very popular player in Swindon across the course of the season, provided he doesn't get suspended too many times. For Telford with no Yokoyama, it was a case of only the one new import, Dylan Skaleski, who looks like he struggled, if we're 100% honest, in this game. Not the biggest of men, not the widest of men. It feels like he was taking this game much more as a I need to get used to what's going on here kind of premise. He was marked out of the game for large stretches of it. It was hard to notice his immediate impact. Vladimir Luka is Vladimir Luka. He is almost impossible to miss and got at least a couple of those big cannon shots away. Either way, the first 20 minutes ended. Swindon had more chances. They'd had the better chances, and ultimately, it was 0-0. Of course, I travelled all that way, 75 minutes in the car in each direction for these two sides to play out another scoreless period of hockey. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The duck, though, was broken in the second period. Lipsy getting the initial breakthrough. Some good work from Josh Shaw to drive the net. Saw Lipsy on hand to clear up the mess in front of Brad Day. This was after, of course, I just tweeted the fact that, well, it would have been nice if somebody had managed to score. 3 minutes and 15 seconds into the second period, you take what you can get. And then a few moments later, it was 2-0, just about sort of 6 minutes or so, in fact. A horrible turnover from the Tigers as they tried to make the outlet pass was picked off by Balin Picozzi. He did most of the work, drew the defenseman across, and fed the puck across to Bricknell, whose first goal in the National Division, definitely not his first goal in British hockey following his time in Manchester, but his first goal in a National Division team was a tap-in from all of about 6 feet. Gary Lineker would have been proud. The rest of the second then sort of carried on as it had been, quite back and forth. Bits of tempo for both sides, some good chances in both directions, but ultimately Swindon were having the better of the game. Early in the third period, 1 minute and 21 seconds into the third, in fact, some more good work by Picozzi feeds Bricknell down low to fire past Day and to make it 3-0. And from that point, it never really felt like the Tigers were going to come back. They definitely had chances. They certainly got some power play opportunities, and the more the game went on, the more Swindon seemed to tire. But that's what you expect from teams in pre-season. The Tigers did eventually get onto the board with just under 6 minutes left. Some nice work from Harding and Ferguson. Left Mackenzie with a layup. He stepped round the defenseman, fired into the top corner. A classic Scott Mackenzie goal. Masterpiece of offensive work there from Telford. It was their best chance of the night, and they put it in the back of the net. Useful for efficiency's sake, even if the fact it had really taken them the better part of the game to properly warm up into it and get a solid attacking chance. The final goal, though, after Swindon had got themselves into penalty trouble, ending up having to defend a 5-on-3 late in the game, Telford pushed. They had some good ideas. They challenged Marr, who made some stunning saves, including one where he missed the shot. It hit the post, came back out, and then was forced to literally leap across the net, almost like a cartoon, to make the save. But there was a block in front inside the last minute. The puck fell to Sam Godfrey, who just slap-shotted the thing from his own zone into the bottom of the net. 4-1 final score. Man of the match beers going to Jake Bricknell and Rhodes Mitchell-King. Telford look like they're going to need a bit more of a warm-up before they really get going. This is followed up by the fact they got shut out on home ice in a pre-season game. Tyler Perry picking the shutout up on the Sunday evening. And there's definitely reasons to be okay if you're a Telford fan. There was some good stuff. There was some not good stuff. They felt like they wanted to kind of take this game in 5-minute stages. Like they were going to attack for 5 minutes and then defend for 5 minutes and kind of practice doing everything. But it never really seemed to flow from one to the other. It was almost like they were turning pages of a book. Like we're going to do this bit now and this bit later. As I said earlier, Swindon looked like Swindon. The transition game is still frighteningly quick. It still looks like they could strike at a moment's notice. But again, you do wonder if they're going to get caught pushing high. Certainly a team of Wells and Bradley as a defensive pairing looks a relatively solid choice. But even I felt a bit nervous on the penalty kill, and I'm not even a Swindon supporter on that front. That said, you're looking for sparks at this point. You're not looking for the big moments. You're not looking for any massive structural deficiencies per se, unless they are so bad that you really have to do something about it. Neither of these teams look like they're completely falling apart at the seams before the season's even started. Certainly one looks stronger than the other. It would have been interesting to see Yokoyama in a game like this that had an element of physicality to it, but ultimately would have relied much more on his scoring antics than just running around bouncing off of everybody like a pinball. Certainly, Telford lacked attacking options. The Wildcats found a way to kind of smother Skaleski's ability to play make. The one time that Swindon gave them any space late on in the game, Telford scored. The goals will definitely come eventually, But you do wonder whether Telford kind of need to speed up their preparations in terms of being ready for stuff. Brad Day looked pretty good. Made some decent saves. The D was obviously missing Dan Rose, who is a very good hockey player, let's be honest here. And with the loss of Nick Oliver, it's going to provide some real veteran presence on that back end. I've said in a few places, Rhodes Mitchell-King cannot be relied upon to do everything. The rest of that D core is going to need to pull its weight. Sometimes you're just not starting great, but even Rhodes Mitchell-King admitted in his post-match interview on Saturday that there were some good bits and some bad bits for Telford. For Swindon, you'll be happy. As I said, Bricknell is going to be a huge fan favourite. A very charismatic player, as well as actually seeming like a pretty solid power forward in this division. What will be interesting for Swindon is when they come up against a side who find ways to smother their attack a little bit more. Albeit on the night, Nell didn't produce, Malazinski didn't produce, the goals came from some odd places. I jokingly suggested to the boys from Macca Talks Hockey who were standing by me that I thought that Reed Sayers would score the first goal. I always find in pre-season, predict random people to score. And Dylan Lipsey getting a goal in the way that you'd expect Dylan Lipsey to do, i.e. tidying up around in front of the net, just shows that maybe some of these youngsters that Nella's pulling through have got that extra bit of hockey IQ to provide more offence this year and more secondary scoring when at times Swindon have kind of needed it. They did rely very heavily and not unsurprisingly on the best British goal scorer of his generation in this division, and Tomasz Malazinski, who's been one of the premier imports over the last few years, even going back before COVID. But when you can get guys like Shaw, like Lipsey chipping in, even if they found a way when he guests from time to time to get Jay Warren to contribute, any little bit of extra counts, especially because teams are going to focus in on Nell, on Malazinski. They'll start to focus in now on Bricknell. They'll focus in on those guys that they know will provide some of their offense. If you can get offense from everywhere, people can't defend everywhere, at least not all of the time. I'd feel more happy about Swindon in general, more just because, like I say, Telford just felt very, very stilted and stunted in this game. Swindon were much more flowing than Telford were, but it was August. As I'm recording this, it's only just turned September. There is a very, very long way to go, and if I know anything, having watched hockey in this country for long enough, both Aaron Nell and Tom Watkins, the wheels are turning. Plans are in place. We'll see, is the short version there. As for me, I'll leave the national division and the NIHL behind. Your next banners on the road comes from high above the Guildford Spectrum. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. Of course, go make sure you check out our National Division preview. That is up on the website for you to read. In-depth focus on every team. The photos from the fantastic Chris Callahan of Blue Line Photography. Do go check that out, as well as a bunch of other things and all of last year's Banners on the Road from the website, and our free to download Dice Hockey game. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, facebook.com/bannersonthewall, Twitter/X is @bannersOTW, and like I said, you can join me this upcoming Sunday on guildfordflames.tv for their Challenge Cup game between the Flames and the Manchester Storm, which is fantastic. Always good to get some commentary in, but plenty of bits and pieces to check out. And of course, this is coming out on Tuesday, and on Wednesday evening over on the Banners on the Wall YouTube channel, you can catch our live show live every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. That we go through all the NHL results, the BOTW What's Current stream, where, like I said, we'll go through all the preseason and, of course, the first games of the NHL season proper, because Division 1 has got the jump on all of us and some league hockey has already been played. The first of many this season. Boy, it was good to be back. Be happy. If you can't be happy, then please do be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. Swindon, see you in a couple of weeks.